Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to another Monster Hunter Cross video. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down all that awesome new Monster Hunter Cross gameplay that I uploaded this morning and telling you guys everything you need to know and just what was going on in the video. If you do enjoy this video or you find it helpful, then it'd be mega awesome if you could hit that like button and leave a comment down below. Now let's get started. First of all, if you haven't seen the first video I uploaded today, then you can find a link to the raw, unedited 26 minutes of gameplay in the description box down below, at the end of this video, or on screen right now. It's well worth checking that out if you want to see it in all of its glory, because in this video, I'm going to be cutting it all up and focusing on the information. Let's begin by taking a look at Bedouin Village. This was the first part of the stream, and this is the new village in Monster Hunter Cross. Monster Hunter Cross will feature 4 villages, 3 of which are returning from previous Monster Hunter games, but Bedouin Village is the new one where you'll start out. Now the village will obviously feature everything you've come to expect in a Monster Hunter title. Armor and weaponsmithy, guild and caravan quests, feline chef, characters to trade items with, buy things from, etc. But there are also these moofas, which you can pet. They're the kind of weird llama sheep looking things. Supposedly if you pet them, they have a chance to give you an item. Now I don't know whether this will be a random item, or if it's like say gathering from underneath the cow in Freedom Unite, which gives you dung and you can then use that to farm. But either way, it's worth spending the time interacting with them. Then if you look over here, you'll see a different colour quest icon, a red one. Now they didn't speak about this, but I assume red may depict something like say key or story quests, whilst yellow ones, like the one of the shopkeeper here, are just conversational. Then at this point, while still in the village, we're now actually in the online portion. You can see that by the small Japanese text in the corner that actually reads online. You'll also notice a lot of hot air balloons floating around. These are what will take you on your quests, and they're obviously kind of like the key sort of, symbol for like this game this time around. And then speaking of quests, that leads us nicely onto the next section, so let's move away from the village and take a look at the first quest gameplay. The first area we got to see was the new prehistoric forest. This is the one we saw before in the screenshots with the giant kind of underwater looking plants and the dinosaur skulls and things like that. And while Monster Hunter Cross does also include old destinations we've been to before, this is the brand new one. Now after panning around the character and setting off, right at the beginning, we get to look at one of the unique moves for the aerial combat style. A jump or a front flip, which looks so awesome. Now if you haven't seen any of my videos about combat styles, I'll also leave a link to that down in the description box down below, but just quickly, Monster Hunter Cross includes 4 different combat styles. The aerial one, which is obviously all about getting you off the ground, one that focuses on countering, a guild style, which is like a legacy combat style based on the combat we know from previous Monster Hunter titles, and another one which we don't have too many details on just yet, but it seems like it's something that sort of focuses on say super moves or something like that. Either way, the thing worth noting is that these 4 styles apply to all 14 weapons. Weapons will of course have their own unique moves, as they always have, but the underlying style gameplay will carry across all weapon types. So the front flip you're seeing right here, for example, isn't exclusive to the sword and shield. All weapons will be able to take advantage of this. It may look different from different weapons, but it will be available nonetheless. As you can see here, the Charge Blade user also makes use of the jump. You can then use this to leap onto monsters. So right here, the hunter is attacking the Diomacetos, which are like kind of the big sort of long-necked dinosaurs that are pretty kind of friendly unless of course you attack them. You can see he does the initial jump and then a second jump off the monster's body, which allows you to get over its back, which is obviously ordinarily pretty high and would previously be out of range. Jumps obviously do use up stamina, so it's just like sprinting, you'll need to use them sparingly, or I assume you can just pop a Mega Potion and just use them indefinitely. Next up we then get a look at Dino Valda, which is one of the 4 flagship monsters. Now encountering him this early on in the game, I imagine means it's probably going to be like say the original Tigrex encounter back in sort of Freedom 2nd, where you're not supposed to necessarily kill it the first time you see it, it's more kind of just sort of like an introduction so you can kind of have something to go back to fight. I'm also assuming that's the case given that the hunter this time around actually takes quite a beating, but you can see that Dino Valda does have some pretty fierce moves and some pretty devastating attacks. You'll also notice that when they kind of first enter the area, there's this almost sort of like freeze frame with like the text on screen, very kind of like comic book-esque in its sort of design, but that is kind of the intro sequence of the monsters, so obviously that's the kind of name for it and whatnot, so that's kind of anytime you fight a new monster you've never actually seen before, instead of kind of your usual cinematic, you'll get something like that. Then, while fighting Dino Valda, you'll see that the sword and shield user uses this roundhouse spin attack, which we saw in the trailer. Now this is actually a super move, and the way that supers work are as follows. When you take damage or you attack a monster, you begin filling your super meter. Then once it's full, there's a button on the touchscreen that you can tap to unleash it. This way it's kind of balanced because it's not always available, and it means you can't overuse it. Now it's also worth noting that it can be comboed into some situations, so you can also kind of use like a super move or a kind of super skill as a finisher. Then if we switch over to the next mission, at this point in the stream the guests were allowed to play. and they did so in multiplayer lobbies, so 2 hunters per quest. In the first one, they are back in what looks like the prehistoric forest, but at night. One user has a gun lance and another one has a switch axe. You'll notice the UI for the gun lance has changed. The number in the bar obviously is how many shots you have left, and it's my understanding that the colour gradient in the bar kind of depicts your charge level. But I didn't actually see the bar move or change, so that kind of wasn't completely clear at the time, but either way that is a brand new overhaul. Now in this quest they're fighting the Great Macau, which is, as mentioned, kind of like the sort of Monster Hunter Crosses version of the Jaggy, the monster you typically encounter very early on, hunting the pack, and this particular one moves around a lot by jumping on its tail. And you'll also see that when they trap it, the visuals for the traps have actually received an overhaul. I'm actually really liking the new look of the shock trap. Now each of these quests weren't actually completed on stream. They only let them play for say sort of 5 minutes and obviously show off some of the super skills, and then they had to kind of sort of wrap it up there and then move on to the next stage. So next up we have an Insect Glaive user and a Charge Blade user back in Forest and Hills, which was one of the original Monster Hunter maps, and it looks so awesome. And in this quest they're actually hunting a Rathalos, and the Charge Blade user has the aerial style, and you can see here that his jump attack actually results in a mount, which obviously then goes on to confirm that mounting is going to make a return in Monster Hunter Cross. The Insect Glaive user is supposedly using guild style, which is supposed to be like the legacy or kind of original fighting style. However, you will notice that the Insect Glaive user has this orb floating around him. Now it seems that Insect Glaive has a new move where you can actually attract bugs. I don't know whether these bugs actually translate into say buffs that you normally get off a monster, or if they're actually stored for say like an attack you do later, but either way it's pretty cool. Also, if you look at the glaive itself, it's actually made of Ludroth parts, so this could mean that Ludroth is either making a return, or you just simply have to trade Ludroth parts. And then once again they ended this one by showing off the super skill for the Charge Blade, and despite the fact that it had a super epic build up, the actual kind of outcome looked a little bit lackluster. Now I don't know if he missed it or something, but if you look at it, it didn't actually look like he finished it, so maybe it hinges on having a charged shield as well. That'd make the most sense for the Charge Blade, because that kind of makes it like an amped up Ultra. But if I play it back again and you actually pay attention, you'll see that when he was doing this, he only had charged files but not a charged shield, so I think that's probably why it didn't kind of look as epic as it did in the trailer. Then for the final mission, this one was a solo hunt, and a lance is the weapon being used. This is also back in the valley from Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, so this is another returning map. And the main thing worth mentioning here is obviously the return of Naga Cougar, a fan favourite monster, which I'm really happy about. Again with the cool intro sequence, and you also get to see the lance user use his super skill, which is a really long charge, and it looks like it hits multiple times if you don't run through or past the enemy. It's also worth noting that super skills don't actually get super armor, meaning you can be interrupted when using it. So don't just use it at random, you do want to obviously kind of place it quite well. And it also looks like some weapons or some moves can cause the super meter to charge faster, because during this fight the player manages 3 supers, whereas in the other ones they only manage like a couple. Now I don't know if charging is tied to say motion values or something like that, but either way that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Now that's actually the final hunt, but there were a few other things to talk about. Firstly, I glossed over it before, but here's what the new loading screen looks like. You can see the running theme here with the hot air balloons, which is pretty cool. They also announced the release date for this, which is the 28th of November this year, and that's obviously in Japan. Unfortunately right now there is still no Western release date. And then they also said, starting from the 1st of August to the 7th of August, they'll be showing off all the weapons in more detail. That's 7 days and 14 weapons, so 2 weapons a day. I imagine that'll be through streams again, so I'll obviously keep you guys up to date on that and I'll be covering it as and when they drop. But there will also be a playable demo in Tokyo shortly after that. Now if you do live in Japan and you happen to be watching this, then you can actually sign up to go to those demos and try it out. But otherwise, on top of that, there will also be demos at TGS. Now one thing to think about, the armor sets they used in these matches were the same as the ones shown in the trailer. So you wonder whether they are kind of pre-made sets akin to those that we saw in the Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate or 4G demo. In other words, could this hint at us getting, at some point, hands-on from an eShop demo? Obviously, again, Japan only, but either way, that'd still be pretty awesome. I think it's probably likely that maybe they'll kind of do the demo on the 8th and then they'll have TGS, and then shortly after TGS, they might drop a demo for everyone to play up until kind of the game comes out. Either way, once I know more about that, I will let you know, but that's a little bit of speculation on my part. And aside from that, that is pretty much it. There's obviously a lot to take in, so I imagine over the coming weeks I'll have some more information to break down for you guys, but for the time being, if you haven't seen the whole 26-minute gameplay, then make sure you check it out, and I'll also link my other Monster Hunter Cross videos in the description box down below, which go over the original trailer, the combat styles, the new monsters, and the Palicoes. Of course, if you did enjoy this video, it would be super awesome if you could hit that like button and subscribe for more Monster Hunter Cross coverage. Thanks again for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.